Welcome to the Spa Girls podcast. Each week we bring you the best self-publishing tips, tools, and resources for authors. I'm Shah Barrett.
I'm Cheryl Phipps.
I'm Wendy Valor.
And I'm Trudy J. Welcome to the spa. Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
And this week we have a very special guest. We've got Rachael Herron. Welcome, Rachael.
Hello. I'm so glad to be back.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Now, last time we had you on was in August 2021 for episode 304. And that was an awesome introduction. So if anyone wants to hear a little bit more about Rachael, go back and listen to that one. But for today, we are going to talk to you about diversification as authors, which is an awesome topic. I'm really excited. So, but first, I just want to know, what have you been doing since 2021, Rachael? Anything exciting? Anything you want to catch up on?
I have still been writing and publishing and teaching, and a little bit of self-publishing, some trad publishing. Life has been awesome and fun. I think the last time I talked to you, I was literally in the bathroom, the toilet,
That's right.
the hotel in MIQ.
Yeah. I remember
and
that.
I was, you were all getting ready to get on the train to go to RWNZ, and I wasn't going to be able to go, and I was so sad. I had FOMO, and then so we spent a few months moving around the country, looking for a place we wanted to live. And we'd always known that we wanted to live in Wellington most of all, but we didn't think we'd be able to afford it. But we found an amazing apartment there with an incredible view. And we lived there for about a year, and well, maybe a year and a half. And then, no, about a year. And now we just bought a house 3 or 4 months ago in Karori and Wellington, and we love it. We bought a house. We got a dog. We unpacked all our boxes. The most important, I swear to you, that we bought this house so that we could get a pet. Like, we waited until all of our old geriatric pets died, almost all, before we moved here. And then we just wanted a dog, and I'm going to get 2 kittens. However, the dog we got is accidentally a puppy, and I've never had a puppy. I've never wanted a puppy. I've only ever.
That's a lot of work.
They're full on. And then luckily yesterday, the doggy daycare person dropped her off after daycare, and she said, "Your dog is a lot of work." And I'm like, oh, thank God. And she has 15 dogs a day, then, that's why I'm going to wait on the kittens is what I'm saying. But
Okay. Well, that's awesome. That sounds great.
What I think we should do
just
now?
realized. I
haven't read the bio. So how about I tell everyone a little bit about Rachael?
Yes.
And then we can go on from there. So Rachael Herron is the internationally best-selling author of more than 24 books, including thrillers under R.H. Herron, mainstream fiction, feminist romance, memoir, and nonfiction about writing. She received her MFA in writing from Mills College, Oakland, and she's taught writing extension workshops at both UC Berkeley and Stanford. She is a proud member of NaNoWriMo Writers Board, a New Zealand citizen, as well as an American. She lives in Wellington, New Zealand, with her banjo-playing wife and brick-eating dog.
Brick eating.
How does a
really,
dog eat a brick? I mean,
you did. Oh, you see her running past with a brick in her mouth. I don't know where she got it in the yard. And I'm like, well, she'll drop it. No, she just chips little pieces off of it.
No.
And then I think she has pica. She'll eat anything. She's a dang puppy.
Yeah.
Funny. Dogs are funny. They are hard work, puppies, I have to say. So for today's topic, let's dig right in. Let's do it. Get on to diversification. So what is diversification? Let's start there. What is your take on that?
So my take on diversification, I would love to hear what you all think about it, is being super creative with the way that we are creatives. I am not married to, I must be traditionally published and make all of my money from traditionally published, or I must be indie published and make all of my money from indie publishing just from books. It's really keeping eyes open and seeing where any bits of money can come from, because if I am diversified, then if something goes away, it won't freak my life out too much. My partner lost her job, oh my God, like 8 months ago. And so diversification for us meant that I have a lot of eggs in a lot of different baskets, to use that old cliche. What about you? What do you think? What do you think of when you think of diversification?
In the writing sphere, I think diversifying more for me is just like taking a product and then putting it into other things. That's probably the road that I would go down, as in translations or audio or when the people pick up the film rights, you know, those sort of things. That will be great.
There are so many people who go right into KU, they do their ebook, and they never do anything else with that property. And that is a product that they never do anything else with.
No, I still get a funny feeling when people don't even bother with print. Because I think, well, that's just one thing that's, you know, apart from the fact that you've got to, you know, get a print cover, but which you can actually do yourself. It's not that hard. Once you've got, you know, the front cover. I think it's just, that's a wasted avenue, you know, just that one thing is just a wasted avenue. But for me, diversification is about being visible as well. You know, and with all the products you can create and all the places you can put yourself out there, however hard that might be, that's how you create visibility.
So I am in KU for one series, and I'm always, you know, playing with moving books in and out. How have you all found? Because I think that KU is such a great place to make money for so many of us. And also it restricts that diversification. So how do you all feel about that? I am so conflicted about it personally.
I think everybody is, to be honest with you.
Well, I made some big calls just recently in the last year or so. And that I opened up a store. So therefore, whatever I put on there, I have to be wide for that. So which is, it's not doing that great, to be fair. I need to get my teeth into that a bit better. But what I did do was my Cozy Mysteries make my money, and they were in KU. So I wrote a new series and put that wide. So that, and I write Cozy Mystery, contemporary culinary Cozy Mysteries, and now I'm writing paranormal culinary Cozy Mysteries. So there is a crossover, but I can use both platforms now, and I'm slowly seeing, with a little bit of encouragement from my reviewers, more stuff happening on the wide platforms. So
I think wide is definitely slower to get traction.
Absolutely, you have to get that mindset that it's not going to be right there like KDP, like, you know, exclusivity to Amazon. It doesn't happen like that. But I'm going to persevere, because I do want that diversification. If something happens to Amazon, I want all my accounts.
We've had a couple of good guests on lately talking about wide and going wide, and the woman that we've had on for wide audio, she talked about diversification in a way that really appealed to me, and that was about it's multiplying the ways that people can see and hear from you, like that. It's just getting that visibility out there in the world. And I kind of, when we talked about this topic of diversifying, I think we were more talking about diversifying in terms of income, where you get it from, not necessarily just from print and ebook and translation, but actually doing other things like Rachel does. But it is interesting that even just within the self-publishing of thinking of diversification in that way.
There's diversification within the diversification.
And I'm in a group with some very extremely successful KU exclusive authors, and it would be foolish for them to move out of it, but they are diversifying in a way that they're investing the money that they make from KU into other things, whether it be property or whatever. So, you know, there's many ways up the mountain as well. You know, I also think it's, you know, if you are doing very well, if it's a very KU heavy subgenre that you're writing in, then you need to, again, think, like you said, Rachel, creatively about, okay, well, this is where I'm making my hay while the sun shines. So therefore, how can I, you know, make that hay work for me?
That KU exclusivity is only for the ebooks, right?
Correct.
Yes.
So we can do audio books wide, and we can do print books wide. So there are, I guess, options for that to kind of in other ways.
I just heard from my I have the virtual assistant, and he told me that finally all of my audiobook that I had hired out myself, all of those has finally not only paid off, but now, so I think I sunk $12,000 5 or 6 years ago into a series that I really wanted to have in audio, and I really wanted this particular narrator. And he came back to me and says, "Oh, you've actually made the 12,000 back after these years, plus another 6,000 recently." Like the money just keeps coming when we do that. And that's all wide. I do really believe in audio wide, even though when you pull it from audio exclusive at Audible, you get a lower royalty, but people are listening to stuff everywhere.
Yeah, they are. It's got bigger, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. But diversification in terms of like looking around and looking at your personality, I think is really what is interesting and fascinating to me about looking for other ways to make money. Because should I tell a little bit about like why I like money so much?
Yeah,
Why you like
yeah.
money?
We like everyone likes money.
Does
Well,
everybody doesn't like money? I mean,
yeah.
I'm not sure.
I don't think they would admit it. I mean,
No,
they would say
that's
it, but
true.
they would,
Yeah.
So I really wanted to be full-time with this gig. And for 10 years, I worked a really more than full-time day job and also worked full-time writing. And then I wanted to get out. And so I made the number that I needed to make. I knew what that was. We had paid off all of our debt except for our house. And I knew that I needed to bring in $3,000 and we were living in the US then, in order to pay my part of the bills and the mortgage and all that. So once my writing was bringing me that, I could make the leap from the day job. I could quit the day job, which was a 6-figure day job. Like, so I'm immediately just cutting off those 6 figures that were, had been coming into my bank account. And the reason I'm so passionate about all of this is that I was terrified and I'm still terrified. I am still, that was 2016. So it's been 7 years. We are not living under a bridge yet. We bought the house. I don't know. They gave us money to buy this house. But every year I'm still nervous about it. I am still literally, as we were about to record, I had this thought flash through my mind. So in very good news, I just sold this paranormal women's fiction to Grand Central Publishing last week.
Oh,
so that'll come out in,
Congratulations.
thank you. It's a new genre for me. So that'll come out in 2025. And that's Hachette is their parent press. And I had been with Penguin Random House, and Penguin Random House turned down that book. So I got out of, I'm not in their contract clause for that anymore. And I thought to myself, ooh, I'm going to pull up my contracts. And I pulled up my contracts for 3 older women's fiction novels that I have there at Penguin, because now they can't get mad at me that I'm publishing with somebody else because they turned down my book. And I pulled up the contract and I looked at the rights reversion clause. And as soon as we hang up here, I'm going to send that email that says I would like my rights back for those 3 books. Because I looked at the contract, I need to be selling 500 copies a year of those books. I would doubt I'm selling 5. I would doubt I'm selling 2 of those books, maybe ebooks every once in a while. So that is diversification. That is me loving being an indie author. I have more titles indie now than trad, and I want more. And those are just free books. Those are books that are not making any money, and they refuse to put those into audio. And I love audio, so I can get them back. I can get the audio done and put them up. And that is diversification, true diversification of a product that's just sitting out there doing literally nothing right now.
Exactly. I'm trying to get my rights back for my first trad pub book, but so far, I'm not getting anywhere.
You're making them too much money, Wendy.
No.
Yeah, they always give me mine back because they're like, well, we can't argue with her. She's not making any money. We're not making any money on those. Give them back.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
But, so when I quit that job, I was a little bit frantic. And then 2 months after I quit the job, and my wife lost her job because she works in computer web development and web design. And those are the people who always lose their jobs first. And so then she was out of a job too. And I was just frantic. And I decided that I would do anything to not go work for someone else. And I wanted to stay within the writing author space. So over those first 2 years, I had a query letter service where I called it the Query Magic Fix, where for $100, you would give me your query letter and I would just fix it and I wouldn't talk to you about it and I'd give it back. And I was really good at it, and people got agents from those. That was like a talent. What else did I formatted books before Vellum came out. I was formatting for large print and print when this was just becoming a thing. I started coaching people, but that's when it comes down to thinking about personality and what you're willing to do, because there's a lot of writers who would rather die than coach or speak or teach. They don't want to have that kind of conversation with people. They want to have the conversation with the people on the page. And I totally respect that. One of my best friends, Sophie Littlefield, is the kind of writer that when she's between contracts and she needs money, she will go out and get a job at the gas station, at the Container Store. She'll do anything not to handle words in any way unless she's writing. Where do you all fall on that? What would you
That's an interesting point, is because I've heard authors saying, like, who have other jobs, saying, I want a job that's completely nothing to do with writing because I want writing to be my creative source, versus what you're kind of saying is you wanted something related to writing. So what's the difference there? Where do you think that comes from?
That's an interesting question. I don't know.
Throwing our guests curveballs, true.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think
it is. I think it comes personally. I think it's a personality thing again as well.
Yeah.
You know, and it might be that you get energy from, say, working with people or coaching them. And from a few workshops that we've given, I'm the opposite. I get completely depleted by it. So it might just be how we're built, maybe.
Yeah, and that's something to say about like the testing of it, the trying of everything. I have always said that in order to make money, I will try, anything that's legal. Yeah. But I allow myself to quit anything that I don't enjoy, that I don't get those energy pennies from, as Becca Syme talks about, right? Yeah. I love teaching on Zoom. I love podcasting on Zoom. I love doing this, but I used to love being in person, but I've learned since COVID that every time I'm in front of physical people, I used to lead retreats. I would get paid to take people to like Venice, Italy. Yeah. That was another diversification that I tried.
Awful.
It was just the absolute worst. But then like since COVID, I've actually realized that my ambiversion is actually introversion. And I'd always kind of been disguising it as extroversion. And I was at RWNZ last year. And I don't know if you know, but I was so sick. I had this abdominal migraine that I had to leave like an hour or two before the end of the whole conference. I didn't get to say goodbye to anybody. And then I just vomited for like 3 days. Yeah. No joke. I couldn't get out of bed. I loved being there and I love being with people. But like Shar said, I was toast. I was absolute toast afterwards. And I keep thinking, should I do a retreat? Because now we're traveling. I wouldn't even have to leave the country. I could have people come here and do a New Zealand retreat. And it makes me want to die. I can't do it. I think I'm not there anymore. Yeah. And that comes down to a personality thing.
Yeah.
Or even just knowing yourself, right? Like, so if you were a new author or someone who knew that they maybe needed an extra source of income to help them, what would be the first steps? Would you sit down and try and figure out the things that you're prepared to do? Like, how would you start, do you think?
I think I would start a little bit broader than that. If I had this thought, I would think I would sit down, because I do everything in the journal way, but some people get more from speaking it out loud. So whether you're a journaler to think or a speaker to think, have that in front of you and start thinking about what gives you energy. Like we were just talking about, what actually brightens your day? Is it hanging out with people? Then maybe people are going to be part of this. Is it you would do anything to not ever see a person? Is there something like there? I think that like my VA and I we don't hang out, we don't talk, but he does so much for me. He knows everything that I need. He's so good at being behind the scenes. Would you be a good VA? I have always thought that my next career, if I need one, would be to be a VA, because what I'm always looking for in a virtual assistant is me, who knows how to do all the things and who will be as diligent about it as I am. And I think that would be such a fun gig that wouldn't require much interpersonally. You're just doing all the, the content creation and the newsletter stuff, and that would be good. Do you love social media? Could you do that? Or do you hate social media? And should you avoid that? And then ask yourself, what would be exciting to try? So I'm trying to think of other things that I have done for money in the past. So the retreats were fun in that I tend to have 2 a.m. Freakouts about money. I don't know if you can relate, but I'm like, I go to bed fine, and then at 2 a.m. I'm like, oh, we're gonna die. We're poverty bound. And I woke up, got out of bed, And my wife went to work the next morning at like 7:30, and I was in my office, and I turned around and I said, I'm going to Venice in 3 months. I've booked the hotel. Here's the website. And I've got my first 3 signups like that. It's just, I freak out and I do things. And so
that's a good kind of freak out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Better than
yeah.
like me, I
You
freak
put
out and I like
paralyzed
go
by it,
hide
yeah.
and do nothing. Like,
Hide under the blanket.
I have activator and achiever in my top 10. So activator starts it, and then achiever pushes me over the finish line.
I
So,
do not have either of those.
I
That's
want
why
those.
I have all the
Biggest-
overthinking skills in my Captain Strings. Sorry. Anyway,
yeah. So yeah. So that was fun. What else have I panicked and done? Something that I think is that I'm going to be leaning on a little bit more as I go forward. And I know this about myself, and actually appearing in front of people. I can do the online courses. And I think online courses are a great way for a lot of us, even if you don't want to put your face on there. Like, I don't know if you've ever taken any of Skye Warren's courses. I don't know if she ever puts her face on the ones that are the evergreen courses, where she's just speaking you through slides. And that woman knows everything. And I don't need to see her face. I just want to hear her voice and her talking about the slides for what she's doing and how she's doing it. And there's so much easy technology out there that is harnessable and learnable. All of these things can be learned for free on YouTube. Every single thing. Or you can pay to take a course from somebody else in order to do a course. But I'm about to launch like a 4-hour long, it's going to be a big evergreen course on the differences between trad publishing and self-publishing, and what you need to know about both and how to go about both. And it has been such a joy to film, and it has cost me nothing but time and making my partner do the captions, because I can't be bothered. But it needs accessibility captions, so she's doing that. But other than that, that'll just go up. And we live in this time as writers where we can just choose to make money. I heard Lindsay Broker say this one day. Like, she's like, man, I just, if I feel scared, I just decide how I'm going to make more money online. I write another book, I do another thing, and we get to just do that. We're allowed.
Yeah.
We're women who have careers because we've decided to take these ideas that are in our heads and put them down. We've already seen the power in that, and harnessing that to do other things, I think, is really, really powerful.
Another avenue that I think is absolutely doable is being a ghostwriter, a legit ghostwriter. And that's a time-honored profession for many writers. And maybe diversifying what you're writing as well. Maybe you have a passion project sort of, or a passion subgenre, and maybe you I don't know, try something different as well. Could be that kind of diversifying as well, in terms, and just under a separate pen name, for example, and just try. I'm getting from you, Rachel, it's about trying, like it's giving it a go.
What about and Patreon? I mean, I know that we've got a Patreon for Spa Girls. I know you've got a Patreon. And we've talked to authors about who, like, I can't remember her name, but she was a very delightful young lady who had used Patreon to do a chapter
Amelia Rose.
That's who it was.
Serialization.
Serialization. And I love that, because it was rethinking how she used a platform to publish and earn money, and she was doing an amazing job of that. So it's not, and that's your creativity.
I do remember the podcast. I will link it in the show notes, but she started that because she didn't have the money to spend on the covers, and so she thought, what's a way of charging with it? And so she started putting it for free on WhatsApp, and then she started providing all this extra content. So
that's so brilliant.
Very
And that
cool.
is, Patreon is very, very, very cool. The thing that Patreon is not a discoverability tool, like Kickstarter is. People troll Kickstarter for things that they want to buy. I can't imagine doing that. I'm not really a spender that way, but people do that. And Kickstarter will promote different things. Like if you get interest, then it'll show you to other people. Patreon is someplace that you do have to bring your readers. But even if you have 5 or 10 readers, you could do a little thing on Patreon. And again, that's one of those things to try. I have backed plenty of people on Patreon who do Patreon for 3 or 6 months, and then they decide it's not for them. And I don't care. I just want to support them. And when they cancel it, I'm like, okay, good for you. You're doing something else. But for me, my Patreon has been It was actually the reason I was able to quit my job. I had this date about 6 months in the future when I was going to quit my job. And then my partner's mom got very sick. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm trying to stick around for a few $1,000 more, but I want to go to Idaho and be with her as she's dying. And so I started this Patreon because of that. And I made it so that it wouldn't go live unless I hit $500. And if I hit $500 a month from patrons, then I would write an essay a month for them, an essay on creativity a month. That was what I did. And I thought it'll never hit this. And I think it hit $1,000 within the first couple of days.
Wow.
And since then, now it's evened out. It's about $1,500 a month that I get paid to write an essay. And those add up into books. I just finished. I can't decide if I'm going to, you know what? I would love advice right here. I can't decide if I'm going to call the book about moving to New Zealand. Am I going to call it The New New Zealanders? Or am I going to call it simply New Zeal? Because it really is about.
No, I think New Zealanders works for me.
That's kind of more fun. What do you all think?
Yeah, I like that.
New Zeal, though, is about the new zeal for life, the new zest, the new beginnings.
Yeah, I get that, but I don't know.
It's kind of ugly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it could mean a lot of different things, couldn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit more obscure. Like it's,
Yeah.
New Zealand is very
okay.
literal,
Thank you.
Right.
For SEO, New Zealander. So I've just finished that, and that's taken like a year and a half or so to write and put the things out. But that means I've given myself like, I can't do math, $20,000 advance for this book that I've been writing one chapter at a time. And then I'm going to edit it and I'm going to kickstart it, which is going to give me another chunk of change. And then it's going to go onto all of the platforms wide, and then it will continue earning. But those are three. So speaking of diversification of a particular product, that's three different methods of diversification. I don't know how the Kickstarter will do. Joanna Penn has talked me into it. And if I made $5,000, I'd be happy. You know, that'd be cool. It's just free money. But we have these tools at our disposal to do this. And if you have a few readers, you can start a Patreon and say, I'm going to give you a chapter a month. And then guess what? You will write a chapter a month, and soon you have a book because you have to. My Patreon is set up that if I don't deliver, I think you can still set it up this way, but I charge on deliverability. So if I don't deliver that month, nobody gets charged. And that's the only way I can do it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I would just be like, well, you know what? I'll catch up next month, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I have to send it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
hardcore.
what about for somebody that, so I can imagine listeners are saying, okay, it's fine for Rachel, it's fine for you guys because you've got a platform that we have through our podcast and through our name.
Yeah.
But what about for somebody that doesn't have that platform? What would your advice be?
For someone who, in general, for diversification?
Yeah.
I would think that if you need to make a little bit more money that is not from your books, or you're working on getting your books out and you're looking for the money to hire editing and a cover, I have recommended to people and they have loved it. Exactly what I mentioned earlier is helping out other authors, putting your foot into the waters of virtual assisting. You will either enjoy it or you won't, and you'll get out of it. But if you enjoy it, what you're doing is you are forming a community. You're learning about the colleagues around you. You're also learning from somebody else all of the steps to do the right things for yourself. And it can be good money that adds up, and you're learning about the industry. You know, that would probably be the easiest way. And I say easy, nothing is easy. It takes such sheer guts to do any of this stuff. Sometimes I don't even understand how we get up in the morning, and sometimes I don't get up in the morning. But it just takes so much bravery, right? To like put yourself in a Facebook group where other virtual assistants are talking, and then go to YouTube and figure out, how would I set up a simple web page that would say that I am available for virtual assisting, and I'm also new, so I'm going to offer a deep discount for my first 2 clients for the first 3 months. Oh, see, just saying that made me want to be a virtual assistant.
I know.
My worst nightmare. See, this is what's interesting, right? Because for you and Cher, it's obviously something you'd consider, and you'd go, I'm like, no way I want to be organizing someone else.
I could definitely do it.
I can't organize myself. one thing that occurs to me as you're talking is that a lot of this we're doing because we're wanting to earn more money, right? Like, so you're doing it to paying the mortgage or whatever, and maybe if our books aren't selling, is there a case, like, I think there'd be people who diversify, who just because they don't want to just write, for example, they want to have a kind of like a multiple income streams because it's just making it a bit more interesting for them. Is that something that's part of it for you? Or
yes, I think it is absolutely part of it for me. I'm a very proud member of the ADHD from birth club, and I do get bored with everything after about 15 seconds. And the only way to combat that is to constantly throughout my day be moving from task to task. So I wonder if a person without ADHD and with really, say, high focus or high deliberative, if this kind of conversation would just make them banana pants to even think about. They want to sit down at their desk and focus on their book. Yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm that person. I just, as you're talking, my head's just going ding, 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 ding. I'm like, no.
But I bet you can sit down and go, can you just go head down and write?
Yeah.
Oh, I want that. We all, it's like straight hair, curly hair, right? Yeah. I want to be able to focus. It is like, it's torture for me to write a first draft, and I have to do it in 45-minute chunks at the max. I can revise forever. I love revision, but first drafts and finding that focus is so difficult. That must be so fun.
Oh, I don't know if fun would be. I have to write my way. I have to write my way into it.
She cuts 30K off a book just casually. Like who does that? To be fair,
I do that too, because I've just gotten it so wrong. Just and then I have to write more.
Well, if you're not a plotter, I'm not a plotter.
Yeah, I'm not a good plotter.
I am
a plotter. I'm just a bad plotter.
Yeah, I just move a lot. When I'm writing, if I get to the stage where my head's, I'll just get up and go to a cafe, or just to go and see Cheryl, or whatever.
For someone like Wendy, who is so focused and so able to do it, I sort of wonder whether diversifying is not the best option, and she's better off just keeping on.
Yes and no. I think putting all your eggs in one basket's never a good thing. Personally, so for me, I think taking the ability to write fast has always been something I have, but you can't rely on that. So there has to be a time where you go, okay, well, what can you do with that product to go more? I mean, I listened to you talking about Patreon and all the things, and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah, and like, no, I don't think I could. I mean,
so that's
to you, to be honest.
That's a really interesting point, though, because we started this conversation joking about how there can be diversification within diversification. And that's another personality question. Are you going to be the person who goes wide and broad, like me, who does a little bit of everything, probably none of it that well? Or are you going to be a person who really focuses on the product? But nobody has to diversify. Nobody has to do this. But if you want to diversify, that person is going to really look at translation, foreign sales, all audio. They're going to have large print. They're going to have hardcover, all of that stuff, and
perhaps discreet or whatever they're called.
Yes,
that kind of thing.
I think it's a personality. If you get overwhelmed easily too, like for me, I get overwhelmed very easily if I've got too many balls in the air, and that's probably why I'm like I am. Whereas other people like you obviously can cope with it.
I don't think I'm coping with it. I am constantly dropping you guys. I mean, who was emailing with it? Was Shar?
Me.
No,
yeah,
it was Shar. So you get that horrible autoresponder that I send back, which is
autoresponder though. That's fine.
But it's an autoresponder that says basically, I suck at email.
Yeah, but
I hope I get back to you, and I love you, but like, good luck to me, because all of the balls are always crashing a little bit. So there is a question of whether you can deal with that kind of chaos. But honestly, all writing is chaos, right? Yeah. Even Wendy, when you're head down in your book, that's chaos of its own sort.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I would love to turn it back on you. What are the diversification things that
you're such a control freak here. You're like turning the interview into being interviewed.
I'm a podcaster. Now you are on my podcast now, all of you, without being asked. What are the diversification things that you have tried and liked, or tried and hated? Anything spring to mind?
Who, me?
Yeah, any of you.
Writing a book together.
Yeah, writing a book together.
Yeah.
We got one done, and then we
but it took a long time. And
a course. We tried a course.
Yeah, we've got a course like half done.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Hours
I
went into
want
that
the
course.
Spa Girls course.
Like
but
2
I shouldn't
years ago. It's
encourage
just
you.
sitting there
Yeah,
gathering
just sitting there.
mothballs.
And
But
what else?
what
Oh,
we
there's
did
so
do
many.
well was the in-person workshop, and I think it was because
Yeah.
it was in person. It was around a restricted time, and it was.
Plus, we
okay,
work
had
well
that
together
focus
in
on-
that environment. I
Yeah.
think we,
Yeah.
We kind of riff off each other, and in person we're kind of like triple, quadruple that.
I have seen you in
It's
person.
a lot. It's a
I
lot.
have seen you take on the
Yeah.
room, and it works so well. I
Yeah.
think you just all balance each other out. When you're in person doing this kind of thing, you balance each other out just like you do on the podcast. That you have all the different flavors and voices, but you really create this beautiful whole that is the Spa Girls.
I think we've
Okay,
each
so-
got our strengths too,
Yeah.
and our
Going-
weaknesses, to be
Going
honest.
back to Wendy, though, I'm just thinking.
No, don't go
on
back to Wendy.
Yeah, no, but on
Rachel's the one being
diversification,
interviewed here.
but just on not a micro but on a smaller level, you have diversified in that you've got 2 pen names.
Yes.
And you're writing in a contemporary and a historical genre. So
Yes.
that's
One's wide,
diversification in and
yeah.
of itself.
And I
right
have
there.
audio and German too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is,
But that's where the buck stops. I've thought so many times about writing a thriller because I started one in COVID and lockdown, and I still haven't finished it. But
Okay, I want to point something out. Sorry for the people who can't see Wendy, but when you said, I keep thinking about writing a thriller, your whole face lit up. Like that delights you when you think about it. So I would like to maybe push you to do that.
yeah, maybe. I don't know where I'd fit it
agree.
into the day, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. Anyway, back to you. That'd be great.
So how do you
Okay,
know?
so-
I know
yeah,
you
go on.
said that there was a little bit of chaos involved in that you'd sort of tend to drop balls, but how do you know when you've taken on too much? Like, what do you, if we've,
I have an exact answer for that. I know exactly how to answer this one. When I don't know if I ever feel like I've taken on too much, because I have, I'm sorry about all the Clifton Strengths talk on here, people, but I have a number 4, I think, positivity, which means that my positivity says I could do anything today. And it really shoots me in the foot. But I do like to take on things. I do very much try not to let people down. And I have gotten a lot better about lists and management, and my primary purpose is usually not to let somebody down, especially whatever editor that I'm working with, because that's their money is depending on me paying them, especially when it's indie. But as soon as I feel dread about doing something, that is my big signal that there's something in a misalignment. I was coaching for a couple of years, maybe 3 years. And it was actually a Patreon perk. I had $100 level Patreon perk on my Patreon that I put up, and I didn't think anybody would sign up for it. And people signed up for it for $100 a month. I would meet with them for an hour, and I think I read maybe 4,000 words, and we would talk about their writing. And here's the thing I don't understand is that I loved reading their work. I loved editing it. And when I was talking to them on Zoom, I really enjoyed it. It was just the best. But every day that I had a call scheduled, I just dreaded that whole day. It was coming at 2:00 and I didn't want to do it. When I was doing it, it was great, but it was coming. And so, so I've really learned, and that's popped up in different places for like little things like the query letter. Somebody would send me a query letter. It was a 15-minute task for me, and I would get $100 and my heart would sink. So there's so many times that I have walked away from money. I have turned off the ability to bring in that money because I don't want that kind of dread in my life. And I feel so lucky that I've built this, that I've been allowed to build this incredibly beautiful life where basically I wake up and I can't wait to get out of bed. Number one, because the dog is jumping on my head, but eating bricks in the bed. And number two, that I just want to do all of the things that I do. That one of the joys of my life is that I stopped coaching because somehow that was giving me dread, but I started teaching these courses called 90 Days to Done and 90-Day Revision, where I walk people through in 90 days of usually, brand new writers, sometimes experienced writers, but walk them through that terrible first draft and the terrible first revision where you're just getting the make sense of the book. And doing that in group settings on Zoom is just, I'm passionate about it. I love it. It gives me so much energy. And it gives me quite a bit of money. But if it turned into dread one day, I would have to listen to that. Did any of you read it was making the rounds. It was making the podcast rounds. Did you read Quit by Annie Duke?
No.
Absolutely incredible book. We talk all the time, especially in the writing industry, about grit and perseverance and never give up, never say die. And this book called Quit, she makes this really compelling argument with lots of studies to back it up, that quit is the opposite side of grit. And we have to know when we need to quit something to move forward and actually accomplish the thing that we're meant to do. And quitting is so hard, and quitting is so maligned in our society. Like, well, you failed. It's also maligned in ourselves. Like I used to think I would rather die than quit. And now that I know it's just part of, this book taught me that it is part of a happy, healthy life, knowing when to quit and saying, no, I'm bested, or I'm busted. Don't want to do it anymore. I made a mistake. I'm used to saying things like, I made a mistake. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm stopping. And the embarrassment and shame that follows lasts about 45 minutes. And then you're free to do what you want to do. So I would highly recommend the book Quit, and kind of listening to the gut things inside. And when you quit something, what room does that open for other things?
Is it the sunk cost fallacy? Is that the
yes
right thing? It's the idea of I've gone too far. I can't stop now.
I can't stop now. And we see that, don't we? And so much, Becca Syme talks about that a lot, in people who are just pouring so much money into trying to promote books that aren't selling, but they have already poured so much money into trying to promote these books that aren't selling that they can't stop now, because then they think they will lose all the money. That is the sunk cost fallacy. The real truth of the sunk cost fallacy is that you must stop now. You must cut off the bleeding now, or it will just get worse. And I have to tell this story about one of the two men who came up with this entire psychological concept of the sunk cost fallacy. They were proving it. They were doing studies. This man wrote the literal book on sunk cost fallacy. He was also a mountain climber. You see where this is going. He wanted to climb the 50 highest peaks in the upper northeast of the United States. He was climbing number 50 with his friend when the weather got bad, and his friend said, we have to turn back. And this guy said, no, I'm just going to climb it because this is my last one. He died. He wrote the book on sunk cost fallacy, and the proof is in Quit. And she shows all the proof in Quit, that even when you are aware of the sunk cost fallacy, even when you wrote the book, you can't act on it. You have to have people around you that say, you've gone too far, you must stop. You have to have guidelines in place that say, if I spend more than $1,000 on this book and I don't see the return of $1,500, I will quit. You have to have guardrails up. And I know we're not talking about diversification right now, but it's really interesting and cool. And
I think that's part of it, because I think a lot of times we need to diversify because we are expending a lot of money on our author business. So, I think that's you're the first person that I've ever heard talking about, because I've preached that, well, not preached, but I've talked about the sunk cost fallacy quite a bit on the podcast over the years. But I hadn't ever considered the idea of putting those guardrails up for yourself. Yes. I know I've been in different writer forums where somebody's come asking, this isn't working, blah, blah, blah. And I don't comment anymore, because it usually bites you on the ass. When you say to somebody that cover, you might have spent $250 USD and it's painful, but it's not going to sell your book. And it's really hard to hear as the person that spent that money. But I like the idea of the guardrail where, okay, I'm going to spend XYZ on this, and that's my limit. That's it.
She calls them quit criteria, and I now set them up whenever I'm taking something new on. Because I have these big dreams, and the positivity says I can fly, and I can't. So the quit criteria says that you can spend 1 month trying to learn to fly in the backyard, Rachel. And if you don't fly in 1 month, you must quit. And then normally what humans do is say, they say, okay, but I need 2 more weeks.
Just one more.
Okay, but in 2 more weeks, you are going to quit. And so at least you will quit a little bit earlier than throwing all of this time and energy behind something that isn't working. And that is where good friends come in too. And that's where community comes in, and being able to have these conversations with a person who loves you enough to say, yeah, I don't think that book is going to sell. What about, oh, maybe it will in the future. Now's not the time for it. What are you writing right now that's going to do for you next? Or do you need to become a VA or teach a class or go get a job at the New World? What is going to support you and still be able to take care of you? And that's another part of diversification I think we touched on really briefly. But if you are the kind of person who doesn't want to have your brain occupied by word stuff, it is okay if you need money to diversify your income by going to get a job at New World or starting a dog walking business or doing something that isn't writing, and not throwing the proverbial good money after bad, which we've all done.
It also takes the pressure off the writing a little bit. I think that if you've got a massive amount of pressure on your writing as being your sole income,
that's what I like about the teaching is that for me right now, teaching those classes feels like my day job, and it takes the pressure off the writing, which means I only have to write what I love. And for a long time, I wrote what I didn't love just because I was trying to really chase the cash. And I feel dread about that. So I had to stop.
I think you have to look deeply into your own justification for why you don't want to diversify, or why you don't want to just push the envelope just a little and see where it takes you. Because, sometimes it's just fear, and that's okay. It's kind of healthy in some respects, but sometimes it's just, I don't know, not having faith in yourself that you are capable. But hey, you wrote a book. Of course you're capable.
I know. It's the truth is that what are the statistics? It's an American stat, but 80% of Americans, and of course they do, say they want to write a book. 97% of people who start to write a book never finish. And the people who are listening to this podcast are anomalous. They are not in that 97%. We just kind of feel like everybody can write a book because everybody we talk to can write a book, and they do all the time. But we have to remember this is kind of miraculous. And the fact that your listeners, that y'all write books or are writing your first book, that you're in the 3%. You could do anything. You can do anything.
That's so true.
And follow the joy. That's the biggest part of diversification for me, I think, is follow the joy.
Yeah, because if you're not happy the writing, it shows in the writing and whatever you're doing, doesn't it?
Have any of you written those books that you just hated and still hate? Yeah. Unfortunately, they sell. That's what's rude. Isn't that rude? Like, those should be the ones that fail.
Yeah, and they're the ones that do well. And I'm like, really?
It's so true.
I don't think I've ever hated a book that I've published.
No,
I always get to the point of love.
Child.
But before I hit publish, I love the book, but sometimes it's like 5 minutes before I hit publish, I finally go, okay, it's all right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Awesome.
Is there anything else to do with diversification that you think we need to think about, or anything we need to talk about here? Like something we've missed?
I think the only thing that I would encourage is to have this conversation about money. Money is still such a taboo in this world, in the Western hemisphere, which is why I like to talk about it as much as possible, because it is a real uncomfortable talk for a lot of us. But especially when it comes to things like money and debt and what you need in this world, and when we are talking about this with our friends, it gets easier and easier to say things like, I will tell you, and I think I told you in this at RWNZ, but at one point we were $127,000 in debt. It was like IRS debt and credit card debt and student loan debt. And I couldn't pull my head up and look anybody in the eye because I thought I was the only one with debt. And when I started talking about debt, I mean, that was a lot. Most people don't have that much, but people started to come out of the woodwork saying, I have debt too, and I can't talk about it. Or I published a book and I made $12 last year. Why don't we talk about that? Or I published a book and I made $200,000 a year. And why don't we talk about that? All of it has a little bit of stigma around it. And the more we talk about things like diversification, where we get our money from, how much we make, the easier it gets. And I mean, this particular industry, indie romance, is primarily women. And when we talk about this stuff, we are empowering women to talk about money. It was my best friend who I told I was in debt. And she said, I'm really, really over my head too. And here, let's do this program, which is called YNAB. You Need a Budget. It's still an app I use. It's the best thing. It taught me how money worked when I was in my late 30s, and now I'm 50. And now we're out of debt. And we own a house and blah, blah, blah. But if I hadn't had those conversations with my girlfriends about, okay, I need money. Do I need to diversify? Do I need to get an outside job? What do I do? I don't know what I would have done. I would still, you know what? I do know. I would still be working the 911 day job. My health would be shattered. I'd still be working 18-hour, 24-hour shifts. And I wouldn't be writing, and I would be miserable, but we get to talk about this stuff. So I will put in a tiny, tiny little plug for my podcast, How Do You Write? On the first episode of every year, I talk about what I've made the year before. And every year it makes me sick. I get so nervous about it. I don't like to do it because it feels like I always talk about how I'm, half Kiwi, half American. So I really want to, I want to talk about myself, but I'm also know that I am the Poppy. Like, don't look at me.
The Kiwi side.
The Kiwi side. Don't look at me. I don't want to talk about this, but it's important that we have this conversation. So I really appreciate you all doing this work, because you so frequently talk about what we need in this industry and about money and about what the best practices are. And you're changing people's lives because of it.
We try to. We still get.
That's so cool to think that. Yeah.
We still get a little uncomfortable at times. But
a lot.
We through it.
As you can tell.
2 years ago, when I did the How Do You Write podcast at the first of the year, I apologized so much because I think I didn't break 200,000 that year, but I came close to it. And I apologized my way through the show. Like, I'm so sorry. This feels so weird. I got emails of complaint from people who care about me saying, don't ever do a show like that again. Just say what you made and be proud of it. Stop it. So this last year I was like, and this is what I made from teaching, and this is what I made from self-publishing. And I didn't apologize, but that is our default position. And we don't need to do that. Men don't do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, exactly.
So
true.
You all are amazing. And I'm so happy to know you. And your show is so great. And I love it. I always listen to it while I'm walking around Karori.
We didn't pay her, by the way, to say.
No,
absolutely.
It's not a diversification of income. So you definitely need to go and listen to Rachel's show, How Do You Write? Absolutely. And I hadn't actually realized that you do your annual monetary report. I didn't realize that. I mean, I have listened to it, but I just didn't twig that it was.
I don't talk about it because I'm embarrassed and I feel weird and blah. But then the more we do it, the easier it gets.
That is important. I think that's awesome. That's very true. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us. We've loved having you here in the spa with us today. It's always
one of us.
And where can people find you and your books and all your names and all your things you do?
I am. That's how I speak. For writers, I would love it if you went to rachelherron.com/write and signed up for my writer's email newsletter. And I share as much as I can about tips and tricks on the podcast and all that stuff. So that's probably the best place to find me.
And Shah, where can we be found?
We can be found at spargirlspodcast.com as well. And we're also on Patreon at Spargirls Podcast if you'd like to buy us a coffee. We'd appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks
Rachel.
everybody.
And thanks to our listeners for being here for another week. And
go ahead and diversify.
Go forth and diversify.
If you want to.
If you want to,
If you want to,
no pressure from us,
No.
Anyway, all right, we'll see you again next week. Bye.
Keep well. Bye.